It was a pleasure talking to all you guys. My name is Tim Deep. I'm the Customer Success Manager for DCKAP. Been with the company for about 8 years now, and just doing a lot of coordinating events for the ecosystem. Like to bring a lot of the technology partners and merchants and distributors together, just so we could really iron out all the details of what it takes to be really successful for e-commerce. So usually we have big events called DCKAP Summit, and that's when we bring the whole community. But in regards to this one is specifically called the eSessions. So it's more of a case study and walkthrough. Today, you're going to be hearing from Kendall and Alec in regards to, what it took for them to migrate over to the Magento 2 website, also integrating with the P21, Epicor P21 ERP system. So, yeah, and if you guys want to do any sharing or anything, the official hashtag for this session will be called DCKAP eSessions. So very, very simple and straightforward. So, and first off, I'd love to thank all the sponsors. So we have Nexcess, a hosting solution for all the e-commerce platforms. So Nexcess will be here, and then Punch Out to Go. So Brady, you'll be hearing from Brady on the discussion panel later today, and of course DCKAP. So, looking forward to really showcasing some expertise and some knowledge for you guys in terms of for e-commerce. So right now I'd like to bring up Karthik Chidambaram. He's the founder and CEO of DCKAP. Just reached a milestone of 15 years with the company and doing a lot with the e-commerce space, and really looking to be innovative and doing a lot of things for the ecosystem. So Karthik, I'd like to bring you up on to the stage, and then you can even introduce the rest of the panelists.
All right, thank you, Tim. Can you hear me okay?
I can, yeah.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Tim, and thank you, Kendall and Alec. That was a great and insightful presentation. Really enjoyed it. And hello, everyone. Thanks to all the audience for joining this first ever e-session. We had an e-summit last month, and welcome you all to this e-session. Really excited. Just to give you a little bit of background about DCKAP, like Tim mentioned, we just celebrated our 15th anniversary. We were bootstrapped with just 2 desks, 2 computers, and 2 people. And we have grown along the way, and we specialize in B2B. And we work a lot with the P21 ecosystem, so really excited about that. And before I begin, I would like to also thank all the panelists for joining me on this panel discussion today. Kendall, thank you, who's the Vice President of Technology at Moody. We just heard him talk. We also have Alec Daniel, a digital marketing designer at Moody. Thank you, Alec. That was a great presentation. We also have Miguel Balparda, product manager at Nexcess. We have Brady Behrman, CEO of Punch Out to Go. We talked a lot about it today. We also have Deckard, Director of Design at DCKAP. Again, I want to say a big thank you to all the panelists, and a very big thanks to both Kendall and Alec again. Really enjoyed your session and vividly remember meeting you guys at the P21 user group a couple of years ago, where we just chatted, built a relationship. And last year we met again in Louisiana, and then we decided to come on board with DCKAP. Thank you so much for the trust. It means a lot to us and appreciate it. So maybe let me just kickstart this panel discussion with Kendall. Hey, Kendall, thank you again. And maybe this question is more on COVID-19, right? So with COVID-19, how has it really impacted your business? And what changes are you seeing in the industry?
Sure. Thanks, Karthik. It's always fun to hang out. I'm going to miss getting a chance at the this user group for P21 now that it's moved virtual, I see. So we'll have to hook up for dinner maybe next year. With COVID, outside sales representatives are our primary sales and marketing channel. So with all the distancing measures that were in place, we had to shift to doing virtual meetings with our customers. Of course, like most people, have a large portion of our workforce working from home. But one of the things the paradigm shift kind of brought to the forefront for us was reliance on our website as a tool for our sales staff, which was a bit of a shift for us. That they typically have rely more on their interpersonal relationships and haven't had to leverage our website much with their direct contacts. And they were finding themselves directing them to technical resources, documentation, line sheets, and so forth, and was able to distribute information to them without having to, without meeting in person as they typically have in the past.
Thank you, Kendall. I think that's awesome, right? I'm really glad that you shifted to e-commerce, and that shift, I'm sure, is helping quite a bit, like you rightly pointed out. So thanks for those insights and learnings. So let me bring on Brady from Punch Out to Go. Hey, Brady, good to be talking to you again, and good to see you. Thanks for joining us. So Brady, you have helped a lot of distributors and manufacturers around the world with punch outs and sales order automation. And you're also one of the pioneers in the B2B e-procurement space. Kendall talked about it a little bit on one of his slides, explaining about punch outs and how you help Moody Price. But for the larger audience, can you please explain what a punch out is in simple terms, and how auto automation with procurement systems is critical, and also talk about your relationship with Moody Price?
Thank you so much for having Punch Out to Go and myself on. I appreciate it very much. Once again, I'm Brady Behrman. I'm the CEO of Punch Out to Go. I think Kendall already actually did most of my job here. He really simplified it. I sent him over a complex diagram and he simplified it, but maybe I'll expand upon a couple of areas, right? So the e-procurement market is a massive market, right? Over 50% of organizations globally leverage e-procurement systems, right? These may be systems such as Coupa, Ariba, Jagger, SAP, which has e-procurement technologies as well, Oracle, PeopleSoft. There's many, right? We've actually worked with over 200 different e-procurement systems around the globe in over 40 countries. So what's happening is these organizations are adopting these e-procurement technologies, and they need to transact with their vendors, right? Distributors and manufacturers, service providers and such, through these procurement technologies. It's a long and kind of daunting process to try to do these things on your own without real expertise, right? We've talked a lot about partners and the ecosystem, and DCKAP has been a great partner at Punch Out to Go, but they align very well with many different partners, right? Partners that excel in different areas. Where Punch Out to Go shines is we are agnostic to commerce and agnostic to e-procurement. We're 100% focused on mitigating the gaps that exist between procurement and commerce activities. These gaps, these procurement technologies, they consist of punch out, which is really just one piece of the puzzle. But then you talk about orders and ship notices, acknowledgments, and invoicing, right? Those are the 5 kind of core transactions that we see across the e-procurement landscape. So what we're doing at Punch Out to Go is just really laser focused on helping companies like Moody Price leverage the e-commerce infrastructure of their choosing, right? Magento is a great selection for them, aligning with DCKAP to connect all the dots, but leveraging Magento to not only address allowing their users across the anonymous, the customers and so forth to leverage Magento, but using Magento to connect also to their e-procurement customers. So that's what we're doing at Punch Out to Go. We're helping companies leverage their own e-commerce infrastructure. While we connect to over 200 different e-procurement systems on one side of the fence, we also support over 50 different e-commerce technologies as well. But that's really what we do, is mitigate the gaps and harmonize the transactions between commerce and procurement to create a more digitized effect. Just as distributors and manufacturers around the world today are adopting commerce technologies, the buying customers, the organizations on these e-procurement systems, are doing more to digitize their efforts as well. So while 50% already use it, we're going to see enhanced usages of those, and they're scoping that 30% of additional companies will start. I think Kendall touched upon that that his customer base are looking at e-procurement technologies because it is becoming more cost effective for them to manage their spend through these e-procurement technologies. Make sense?
No, it makes a lot of sense. And thank you, Brady. It really helps. And I also like your logo there in the background, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's nice. I painted it for us last week. I don't know if you noticed, so the US B2B market report came out last week, and It's 17.5 trillion in total sales for distributors and manufacturers, 1.3 trillion through e-commerce, through www. Obviously, massive growth, still 20% there. E-procurement was almost $1 trillion with almost 20% growth. And then we looked at like EDI, 7 trillion. What we're trying to do at Punch Out To Go, and what we've helped a lot of customers do, is take EDI, e-procurement, and drive them back through commerce, right? Commerce is this modular component that does sit on top of P21. So if all the hooks are in place between Magento and P21, we like to leverage Magento because it's modular, right? We can help, kind of make it easy to transition customers, automate the transactions from not only punch out, but purchase orders, invoices. Whether they derive through commerce or not, we like to drive back through commerce because it really is a commerce activity.
Thanks, Brady. Appreciate that. So let me bring on Miguel, product manager at Nexcess. Hey, Miguel. We also have an extra guest in the panel. I just saw your dog, so maybe go to your dog as well. I don't know if the dog's still around. What's his or her name?
Great. Yeah, no, the dog is Copernicus, but he's now sleeping, so I think we're safe. He's not going to eat me during this stream, so yeah, we're safe.
Oh, no worries, no worries. It was fun. Cool. Hey, Miguel, good to see you again. And you are a world traveler. You travel many times a year to every part of the world, right? So I've seen you in conferences across the globe. So how are things at Nexcess, and how are the current circumstances different from you? I think, where are you right now?
Yeah, nobody really travels these days. It's true that I used to travel a lot. This year I went to Magento, India in January or February, and then I ended up in Iceland. But it's nobody travels these days, which is good because I get to have some time to actually sit down and work instead of sitting on a plane, crossing the ocean. So it's really nice. It's a terrible situation for everybody, but at least I get to do some work. I get to spend more time at home. I get to spend more time with my dog. So it's been nice. I'm missing the travel, but I don't miss it that much.
I couldn't agree more. Thank you, Miguel. Appreciate that. And Miguel, maybe let me ask you a hosting question, right? So what are your top 2 recommendations for high performance in a website?
I'm going to divide this in 2 different answers. I'm going to start with backend services. I would say everybody should be using Elasticsearch and maybe Redis. Mostly because those are really low-hanging fruits. You can just integrate with a couple of clicks in Magento 2. And then I'm going to move real quick to the front end. And I would say everybody should be using Magepack, which is a JavaScript tool you can use to actually make your server run faster and be more in line with the current best practices in the front end. That's a really nice tool from a Polish developer. It's great, it's open source, and it's really, really easy to use. It's basically you building your store and then deploying that to production. But they change some stuff like the order which JavaScript is being loaded, async image, preloading, that kind of front-end good practices. And I think it's something everybody should be using these days, mostly because it's really simple. And the current Magento 2 front-end is not the fastest out there. And this module, this tool, it really helps to make your store way, way faster.
Thank you, Miguel. I'm sure that helps everyone here in the audience. Appreciate those insights. So let me bring on Alec Daniel, digital marketing designer at Moody. Hey, Alec, that was a great presentation. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Karthik.
Yeah. Thanks again. Great to be talking to you again. And you wear multiple hats at Moody. However, as a digital marketing designer, right? So what is your primary focus, and how does that translate into business?
So I think overall my focus is on improving our digital footprint and just making sure that we don't get left behind, as that landscape evolves, which it always is.
Awesome. No, I think that's great, right? And a follow-up question to that, right? So how do you really measure impact, right? So how do you measure the marketing impact, or how do you measure the work being done with respect to digital marketing? Do you use any tools, or any thoughts there?
So I think really any digital marketer can tell you that sometimes it's really difficult to quantify measuring the impact per se, and that's really in regard to SEO specifically. So to me, the impact of my work, it's really not a defined conversion like a web sale. We are a sales and service company, so I think just getting our website in front of customers and potential customers is a win for us. I know that, you know, by ushering those people into our funnel and just getting them on the phone or speaking with a Moody Price representative, they're going to see how great that experience can be in working with our team. So basketball analogy, my goal really is to pass the ball to our sales team. They're going to slam dunk, give them a great experience. That's really how I measure the impact of my work.
Thank you, Alec. I think well said. And always everyone needs more leads and more phone calls really, right? So that's great. So thanks for sharing those insights. And let me bring on Alex Deckard, the Director of Design at DCKAP. Hey, Alex, good to be seeing you again. And thanks.
Hey, Karthik.
Yeah. And Alex, maybe I have a couple of questions for you. So you work with a lot of customers and you help design a low effort experience. What exactly is a low effort experience and how do you create them?
Sure. Hi, everyone. And thanks again to Alec and Kendall for the kind words there. In terms of low effort experiences, I think there's often a disconnect between the experience customers want, and by customers I mean web users, and what they think they want. Often we get caught up trying to cram as many options or bells and whistles into a release as possible in an attempt to create a wow factor, so to speak, when really often what all they really want is the simplest way to get from point A to point B. There's data that shows that customers are up to 94% more likely to repurchase a product or service that yielded a low effort experience, in comparison to experiences that had additional options, features, or strived for customer delight over simplicity. Additionally, 88% of those customers increased spending as a result of a low effort experience. So, back to your original question, what is a low effort experience? So simply, a low effort experience is one in which the customer doesn't have to think about it. And I think there are a few hallmarks that are common here with low effort experiences. The first would be it simply does what it says it's going to. In other words, it works as expected. So, for example, when you order through Amazon Prime, you're confident that the item is going to arrive quickly, typically within a day or so, and in the condition that you expect it would. And if it doesn't arrive quickly, or if it arrives damaged or something, that they're going to get a replacement out to you as soon as possible, or refund the purchase without much hassle. So you're confident in that experience, and you have an expectation that is typically met when you order through Amazon. Additionally, using Amazon as an example, again, they've created a system that does the thinking for you. When was the last time you couldn't quickly find something you were looking for in Amazon? It almost never happens. They've even made it so products you repeatedly or frequently purchase, just simply show up at your door. You don't even have to log on to the website and order them. So again, to kind of summarize what is a low effort experience, it's one that you don't have to think about. It does what it says it's going to, and you can be confident in the expectation.
Oh, thank you, Alex. Yeah, so don't make users think, right? So well said. And how do you create these low effort experiences, right? So can you share, how do you work with a customer to create low effort experiences? Like maybe we can even take the Moody Price example.
Sure. So again, I think this varies depending on the customer and the market. But as Kendall spoke to earlier, a big priority for Moody Price was the request to quote. So when you arrive on the homepage, the customer doesn't have to look for that. It's right front and center in the main banner. There's a link in the header. So even if they arrive through a product page or some sort of sub page, that they are still quickly able to get to the request to quote page. Again, it goes to just setting the appropriate expectation, ahead of time. Going back to Amazon, we don't all have the capacity to deliver an item next day. So if that's the expectation that we're setting with the customer and we can't deliver on it, it's going to lead to a frustrating experience. Even though we might capture that initial sale, the cost benefit is not going to be worth it in the long run. Similarly, if we're not adequately communicating what the product is that they're buying and what they receive is different than their perceived value or expectation for what that product is, it's going to lead to a bad experience. Using that last example, within the context of e-commerce, I think both of these can be achieved and overcome by ensuring that you have proper messaging throughout the site. So for instance, with Moody Price, they're clearly stating their shipping and returns policies throughout their site. So people know when they order exactly what to expect and when to expect it. And also, Moody Price does a really good job with their product information. So their images, descriptions, and anything else that is relevant to that purchasing decision that's going to help inform people what to expect upon arrival. So I think, in addition to setting appropriate expectations, another cornerstone of these low effort experiences is reducing cognitive load on part of the customer. Again, this can take several forms, but I think an area that often has several low-hanging fruits and is typically overlooked is the main menu. Simply ensuring that the navigation is easy to use, is clearly labeled and organized, and it's easy for users to understand and anticipate can make a world of difference in terms of the usability of the site. And as we mentioned earlier, another really low-hanging fruit is site search. Ensuring number one that it works as expected, and secondly that it's delivering relevant results that are both easy to refine and don't overwhelm the customer with options. Will greatly decrease the amount of thought that your customers have to put into selecting or finding a product. So those are a few places I would recommend starting, but again, I think the list goes on. In summary, the most important thing you can do to deliver a low effort experience quickly is accurately setting that initial expectation with the customer, across your brand's presence, whether that's your shipping policy, main menu, or product pages, and then delivering upon that expectation.
Thank you, Alex. Thanks for introducing more food experiences to us and the audience. It's awesome and great to hear the stories here. So let me just bring on Brady and Miguel. Do you have any cost-saving offerings during the current period for merchants? Right. So during the pandemic, are you offering any cost savings for customers? For the audience here.
I guess I can go first. So because we support every e-commerce technology out there, there's a couple of different pricing models, but absolutely, we have a number of different areas that we're driving value to help our customers achieve results, whether they're new customers or existing customers that may need to integrate quickly and do different things, and a number of different kind of tiered pricing or deferred payments, whatever we need to do to help the global economy and help digitize efforts on both buy side and sell side. So reach out if there's anything that we can do to assist. But yeah, so there's a number of different programs available.
Yeah, for us, it's pretty much the same. We are a hosting company, and we've seen a really big increase of people asking us to host their site, mostly because of the current situation. Everything's moving online, which is great for us, but it's still a really complicated situation. So we do have several plans that depend on the site you are trying to build, but most of it, we are trying to help. We are trying to help merchants as much as we can, because these times are really weird. Like, everybody's trying to sell online. People don't really know how that works, and we are right in the middle. So I think besides having offers, we are really trying to help people more than we usually do, because everybody's afraid, everybody is trying to sell online, and those two things, they don't combine well. So we are really trying to be as helpful as we can. We did some overage fee reduction, like if you do auto scaling, we won't charge you. We do migrations for free. We have a bunch of stuff going on now. But again, most of all, we are trying to help you.
Thank you, Miguel. Thank you, Brady. And one thing I do recommend merchants is ask for help. Cool. I think that's really good. And let me bring on Alec, Daniel, and Moody Price, right? So what is one thing that one should be focused on, or what are you focused on during a pandemic like this? And yeah. So.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Karthik. So this break really allowed me to take some time and get back to what I consider the digital marketing basics. Our sales team wasn't out. They weren't making sales calls. They weren't going to trade shows. Everybody's working from home. So that took the load off of me in needing to provide them their, print and digital resources for all of those things. And so in removing that load for me, I was really able to focus on things like our local SEO initiatives, enriching our content on our Google My Business locations, created a social media schedule for posting, stuff like that. Went through and worked on our meta descriptions, our page titles, stuff like that. I think I knocked out about 70% of our website during this downtime. So it was very beneficial.
Yeah, those are really practical tips, right? So I also call them low-hanging fruits. And are you doing anything specific on the B2B landscape, Alec, specifically for B2B?
Yeah. So one strategy we focused on during this pandemic was we went ahead and reached out to our smaller accounts, so customers who spend less than $10,000 a year with us, and we really encouraged them to create web accounts. And the reason being was we sort of wanted to take the load off of our sales team, and so we made them or asked them to create web accounts so that they could make those purchases through the website and take that load off the sales team. So it worked out well. Had about 50 to 60 creations so far. That number's still rising, but it was one of our initiatives, one of our strategies during this time.
Thank you, Alec. It's a very practical advice, and reach out to customers and outreach, right? So that's something we can definitely learn from. Another question I had for you is, I understand you also use rentals at Moody Price. So do you use any other rental ERP, or are you just managing that on P21? I'm just curious.
No, we actually handle all of our rentals through P21 as well. So it's all consolidated there.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate that. Let me bring on Kendall. Kendall, I mean, you already maybe briefly touched upon it on your presentation, but can you talk about your experience about integration of P21 with Magento 2 using Chorus? How this integration helps and how does it ease your business?
Yeah, the Chorus was pretty easy. And it was a relief, if you will. It was one of web technologies is probably not my strongest suit of skills. I'm more in the server and SQL side of things, and really have never had a need to deep dive into the web technology. So when we set up the Chorus middleware to sit in between Magento and P21, I provided DCKAP with a virtual machine running IIS. They remoted in, took care of all the initial setup and configuration. And then once that was done, all the management from that point forward was done through the Chorus web portal, which is, I mean, it's very simple. It's almost drag and drop. You see a list of P21 fields on one side. You see a list of Magento fields on the other. You connect the dots saying, I want this class 3 ID to be, some type of short marketing description on an item in Magento. You create the link and then set up the replication schedule. I want this to refresh hourly, weekly, or in the case of some items, we actually even have those loading real time in the cases of things like tax exemptions and things that are critical real time for the transactions. So it was pretty easy to set up and set it and forget it kind of thing. After the initial setup and configuration, I don't think that I've actually logged into our Chorus portal in probably the last 2 or 3 months, because once it's where it needs to be, it just runs. We haven't had any issues with stability, no scheduled reboots or anything like that. It's been very stable. In fact, more stable than the Epicor, the Epicor middleware that ships with ECC, which would require sometimes daily reboots to keep the recycler refreshed and emptied. So it's been very nice. It was a nice shift.
Thank you, Kendall. It means a lot to us, and we're really glad that you don't have to log in again to Clorus once it was set up. I'm really excited about it, and also thanks a lot for the product feedback you've given us. Appreciate that. And let me bring on Alex Deckard, the Director of Design at DCKAP again. Hey, Alex, the question for you is, what can merchants, how can they prepare, right, for a new site build or a redesign to increase project success, right? So there are a lot of merchants here. So do you have any advice on those lines?
Yeah, sure. So, part of our job on the services side, especially at the beginning of a project, is to ask the right questions or help you approach the project from an angle that might not have otherwise been considered. Sometimes the closer we are to something, the harder it is for us to see the entirety of it. We also have a lot of experience in this space, which has given us perspective for what tends to work versus what doesn't, especially within the context of e-commerce. With that said, there are always details that we tend to seek out before the project starts that helps to provide some context and starts to define the constraints for the project. And I think it's helpful to approach a project within one of the following examples. So the first example would be a client who knows exactly what they want, and they're ready to bring their vision, so to speak. So with this type of client, the more specific you can be and more prepared you can be with items such as brand guidelines or sketches or wireframes, as well as any metrics or data to inform or support objectives or decisions that we would make. This allows us to quickly and efficiently create an end product that matches that initial vision and business objectives. Secondly, there might be a case of a client who might not have a refined vision, but they know what they like, and in the beginning of that project, we'll focus more on the discovery. In this case, it's great to come prepared with examples or references for the type of functionality you're looking for, or the type of content that you're likely to have, as well as like any sort of style references that resonate with the brand or business. Having a strong sense for what the objective or reason behind the build or redesign really helps us with the approach. The last example or bucket or client type is someone who might not necessarily know what they want or what it looks like, but they know what it needs to do. So for instance, there's some sort of state change that should take place with the audience. So it should either inspire trust or communicate urgency or educate or inform. In these cases, it's really important that we know as much about who it's for and who kind of the competition is in the space as possible. In addition to the above examples, one element that I think is often overlooked at the beginning of the project, yet it's critical to both the design and the build, is the content and creative assets that you'll have. So things like page copy and text, images, including like product images, category images, and any sort of promotional imagery. Important, marketing messaging and call to action. These things are important because they not only inform the design, but the shape of the site. But if we also think of within the context of an effortless experience, which we talked about earlier, it's really these elements, the content, the images, the text of the site, that serves to set that first and initial expectation with the customer. So for example, if a customer were to land on a product page that has a low resolution or out-of-date product image, then how does that reflect on the brand and business? And is that going to inspire the customer to purchase that product? Or if the product details aren't up to date and they order the wrong item, well, then suddenly that effort required on part of both the customer and the merchant has greatly increased. Furthermore, I've seen it over and over again where there really isn't a content strategy in place to gather, or even tougher yet, produce the content in the first place. In either case, the amount of resources this takes is typically greatly underestimated, and the outcome is generally either a delayed launch because we're waiting on content assets to be delivered to build the pages out with, or it gets launched on time and the overall quality and user experience suffers as a result of a rushed or neglected content strategy, so to speak.
Cool. Thank you, Alex. Yeah, ask a lot of questions and content strategy. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Thank you. And let me ask a question to Brady. Brady, can you talk about the ecosystem partners and why is it so important?
Yeah, absolutely. No one company can do it all, right? It really takes the collective of identifying, the right SI, right? Like DCKAP, identifying all the pieces of the puzzle you're going to need, PIM and, ERP connectivity, marketplaces, perhaps, payment, type of technologies, tax technologies, the list goes on, right? So not one, if you go to any SI and they say, oh, we can do all that in-house, run as fast as possible because it takes the best of breed technologies, the best of breed service providers that perfect the commerce experiences, right? So identify the right partners. I'm glad that you gave me that question because we work with so many different SIs around the world. I think in DCKAP, you guys do a fantastic job of identifying the subject matter experts, the right partners to work with that will drive value to your customers and ultimately to their customers. So thank you for asking me that question.
Thank you, Brady. And just have one last question, and also we have a couple of questions from the audience, so maybe we bring that on as well. So maybe it's a question to all the panelists here, right? So can you talk about one thing, what is one thing that you're reading right now or learning or anything that you're doing fun during this current pandemic or during the current time? So yeah, so Kendall, do you want to start?
Sure. Reading lately, I've gotten involved with the Nelson DeMille's John Corey series for books, just fiction. It's a little brain popcorn. Makes it easy to unwind at the end of the day. And then while I haven't been forced into learning it, I have taken an initiative to start learning some more of the deeper web technologies. P21 is moving to the web-based application running on IIS. So some architecture that I've avoided all the way up to this point in my career, I'm now having to cannonball into the deep end of the pool on.
Thank you, Kendall. So Brady, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I mean, besides my day-to-day of reading everything I can about the markets and trends and keeping my my hand on the pulse there, I have a hobby of auto racing, and right now I'm going through getting my my competition license with a group called NASA, National Auto Sports Association. So a lot of reading, a lot of testing, so that I can get out there and be safe and have some fun.
Awesome. I love your background again. So thank you.
Keep putting it up on you.
Miguel?
Yeah, I'm not as interesting as these guys. I've been reading mostly PCI documentation for the Magento 1 end of life, which is terrible. Nobody wants to do that. So yeah, I do have some new experience building Raspberry Pis with my own hands during this quarantine, which is good because I really like retro gaming and hardware in particular. But it's been not the best season to read for me, mostly because all the documentation I have to read all day long.
No, that's awesome, Miguel. It's always nice to upgrade your skills by learning a lot of tech stuff. So it's awesome. So Alec, Daniel, so anything reading or doing fun?
Yeah, sure. I've been reading a book called Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. It talks about using the elements of storytelling to sort of position yourself in the customer's journey. One of the biggest takeaways I think I've had from this book is that you have somewhere between 5 to 10 seconds to answer 2 questions a customer is going to have when they land on your site, and that is, what are you selling and how does it benefit me? So there's a lot more tidbits in here, but I don't know, it's taught me a lot of design and the psychology behind that. So
thank you, Alec. It's always about storytelling, and the book I'm reading right now is The Ride of a Lifetime by Robert Iger, the Disney CEO or executive chairman, how he started really small in the company and went on to become a CEO, right? So it's an inspiring read. So definitely highly recommend everyone reads that as well. So we have a couple of questions from the audience as well. So we have a question from Barry Holman. So for a P21 company who has never ventured into e-commerce, what is the realistic expectation of how long it would take to be functional on the web? So maybe I can answer that question. So in terms of timeline, I think Moody Price is a great example. Kendall talked about it, 3 to 4 months. So we can keep it simple. So I think 3 to 4 months is being maybe a little too aggressive. I mean, I would say anywhere from 3 to 6 months, right? So you can get something simple up and running in 3 to 4 months. So that's what I'll add to that. I hope that answers the question, Barry. And we have another question. I think this is for you, Brady. What is level 2 punch-out catalog?
Yeah, absolutely. So level 2, traditionally speaking, when you do a punch-out, the end user selects maybe a logo or something within a search within your procurement system, and that takes them to your homepage. Level 2 is really great, but not every procurement system supports it, nor does every customer, even on the same procurement system, support it. Ariba supports it as a system. Jagger, used to be called SideQuest, supports it as a system. Coupa has their version, which is called OpenBuy, which is a little different. But level 2 is if you're used to sending your customers hosted catalog content, right? Excel sheets that they can put into their systems. First off, those are your first targets you want to move to punch-out. But ultimately, it's kind of like a hosted catalog, but the difference is rather than a user punching out directly to your website, if they're searching for a widget, they're actually going to punch out directly to your widget, which is great because it drives the user directly where they are. So these e-procurement systems are glorified marketplaces, right, for internal purchases. Level 2 is an awesome function to leverage. Again, not every one of your customers will support it, even if they are on the same systems. Do ask because it is something that you want to offer, and obviously Punch Out to Go supports level 2 and all the different flavors of level 2.
All right, thank you, Brady. Again, we have pretty much come to the end of this e-session from DCKAP. I want to thank all the panelists, Kendall, Alec, Miguel, Brady, and Alex for joining me today and joining us. It's been great having you guys, and it's been a lot of learning. We understand that there are a lot of webinars going around, but it's been really, really great learning for us, to all the audiences, and to me personally as well. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks for those great questions. Thanks for those great insights. Kendall and Alec, thank you for your business. We really appreciate it. And it's awesome to be partnering with you, and appreciate all of you joining us today. Yeah, over to you, Tim.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Well, thank you, everybody. I guess in regards to one of Karthik's questions to in terms of promotion, so with Punch Out to Go, if you want to even reach out to them, just go to punchouttogo.com. And then with Nexcess, we have the eSessions promotion. So 25% off your first 3 months. And this is valid until June 30. So if you put in discount code eSessions DCKAP, then you should be able to get that. So, and then with the closing note, so, thank you again to our sponsors with Nexcess, Punch Out to Go, and DCKAP. So if you guys have any questions or anything, feel free to even jump onto the networking session. I just posted that onto the chat box, and then we'll have some people in there. And if anything else, you guys have enjoy the rest of your day, stay safe out there, and hopefully we'll see you guys soon at the next event. So I'm gonna go ahead and close this off. I'll leave the screen up running for a little bit more just so you can click on it, but hopefully we'll be able to see you in the networking session. We'll see you guys soon.